Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brendan Hauser with EVOQ Bike. So I had some questions about the lifting program that I had put up on Training Peaks that has just lifts, no rides. And this isn't a shill, but I think these are really good questions that people might have about their own lifting. And this guy is a little bit more experienced in lifting than some other athletes. And that really changes things, because most athletes that I talk to either have never lifted before, or have never lifted consistently, or have done it for maybe 2 to 3 years sporadically. So as cyclists, we always need to remember lifting weights is a sport in itself. We are just trying to get stronger and apply that to our cycling, but we are cat fives in the lifting world. And a really interesting note that was in the Niels van der Poel big mega document that he put out, he always talked about doing what you needed to do for off the bike stuff to get the most benefit, but not doing too much that you were wasting energy. And I think we need to have that mindset sometimes when we're lifting, because I'll get into that, but he had some really good questions. I've kept it very basic for myself and for athletes that I coach, because basic is good if you can make strength gains. We don't need to be doing 40 different lifts, because we're never going to get good form and get good technique for 40 different lifts if we're only lifting 2 to maybe 3 times a week. And then there's this whole point during the summer when we're racing where we might lift once every 2 weeks. Or, athletes that lift every week, I think it's a great idea. It's just not building the same repetitive patterns and muscle memory that someone who's actually lifting all the time is going to build. And so that's one reason why I kept it relatively basic. But this guy's questions were really good. He said, hey, sorry, I just lost that. He said, okay, noticed a few things. I've been cycling for over 3 years and have lifted a little bit before. I recently purchased your strength program to put a little bit more structure around my cycling block, and I have some questions. He had mentioned a few other coaches that he had been working with that I know, and I'm not going to talk about their plans. I've definitely seen them before, but I'm going to address why our program doesn't have some of these phases that you might see in other programs. So that was his first question. I see that your lifting plan does not include hypertrophy phase or a power phase, such as jump squats or power cleans. Why is that? Instead, it appears that after the adaptation phase, your lifting plan focuses primarily on building strength by emphasizing low rep sets for the core lifts before transitioning into a maintenance phase. So really good question. And our program is based around GZCLP, which is a style of linear progression lifting. The biggest reason we landed on following a protocol like this is because after talking to a few different strength coaches and giving them our perspectives from the mindset of a cyclist trying to lift weights and get stronger, we need to start slow. And our adaptation phase is like 6 to 8 weeks of body weight, no weight on the bar, getting form down. We don't want to go in the gym and get injured or tweak a muscle or do anything that's going to take us off the bike. This is supplementary, and it is very important, but it's not our main sport. And so by going into just doing the adaptation phase and then going into what people would consider strength, it is lower rep, but the weights start low. I'm never advocating to an athlete to go in and set a 1 rep max. And I'm not here to knock other coaches' plans, but for me, I had been coached in other ways where very quickly I was learning how to lift. And then it was like, hey, go figure out what you can lift the most for 1 rep. That to me is really dangerous. And I've seen the number of people that have tweaked their back doing that for the squat is more than we want. So I'm not going to follow that style. And also I think that when we're talking about things like hypertrophy, which is to build your muscles larger, there are papers that show that whether you're trying to lift heavy there's different ways to grow big muscles. We want strength at the end of the day. And a lot of times these hypertrophy phases are so short, it's like you're not going to change that much in 3 weeks. We're trying to get into the gym. If you're going to call something hypertrophy and maybe your muscles get bigger, but does that actually lend you to lifting and getting stronger in 2 more months' time? I don't think so. And not for a cyclist who's trying to still learn the movements and getting the muscle memory down. So it just doesn't seem necessary to me. And then this athlete had asked another good question that said, so I'm naturally strong for my age, and he was asking about, what do you think? His back was starting to hurt. He said, do you think there's a particular ratio of squat or deadlift weight that I should be targeting relative to my body weight? And I love this question because it's something that I've been thinking a lot about for myself. And when I've been deadlifting around 1.75 of my body weight, and I'd use the hex bar, and I'm only squatting about 1.25 of my body weight, both feel heavy. The deadlift feels very heavy. The squat feels heavy enough that more weight right now I could maybe lose control of that weight. I'm able to do 3 to 4 reps and feel good finishing them. I'm definitely probably not leaving 2 reps in the tank, which I should be doing. I'm not perfect at this either. And that's really what had me sort of pause recently. And I had tried to do 1.8 of my body weight on a deadlift session, and I just put the weight down. I'm like, this is just way too much. And when I say I don't have 2 left in the tank, I'm meaning probably on my last couple sets. I usually can probably squeak out a 4th, but maybe not a 5th. And I should. I preach that because that's the safe way to lift. So I think to his answer, I had said, if you get, number one, if the weight's starting to feel incredibly heavy, you need to be very careful. But for me and for other athletes that I've talked to and looked at kind of their numbers, 175 for a deadlift, 1.5 for a squat, that, is there a diminishing return after that? Possibly. Should we pause there? I would at least pause there, maybe add a 4th rep on to some of your sets, and maybe you start doing some other tertiary or secondary lifts to help you get even stronger if you want to lift more. I don't know if lifting more is going to help you on the bike. I don't know if anyone's going to know that exact answer. And then to that point, one of his questions was, should I really be lifting 3 times a week? If you get to that point and you're feeling strong and your bike hours maybe could use a bump, don't go to the gym 3 times a week, go twice a week, and then ride more. The gym 3 times a week is great during the winter, especially because most people can't get outside all the time and they can't ride and they want something to do besides the trainer. So go to the gym. So that's kind of the my thought process on that one. And then he'd ask me, but if I was lifting 3 times a week, if you have squats on a Tuesday and deadlifts on a Saturday, you're kind of using the same muscle groups. Can I do those both on the same day? I would not do squat and deadlift on the same day just because it's so much stress on the back, even if you're using a hex bar. And to that point, he had asked me, if they're really working the same muscle groups, like just get them all done in one day. The squats should be more predominantly quad, and the deadlift should be more predominantly, hamstring, posterior chain, glutes. Definitely some quad is involved. But if you want to exacerbate that or make it, maybe that's not the right word, if you want to increase hitting your quads on a squat, look up putting the little wedges in beneath your feet, and that will really hit your quads. Definitely don't do the same amount of weight. I haven't done this before, but I know other athletes do it. They really like it. It just smashes the quads, and then on a deadlift day, they feel like it's less activation on the quad. I can't speak to that because I haven't done it, but it's something that you could fiddle around with. And then his last question was, hey, my coach has me lifting after hard interval days. I'm finding that threshold and above is really more difficult because of the fatigue I've accumulated from heavy lifting. If you were coaching me, what would your instinct be to reduce my FTP while I'm heavy lifting or lift less heavy? I would say lift first. I love lifting first and then doing intervals. And while they can make 15 to 20 minute intervals tougher to complete, I think 6 to 10 minute ones are usually okay. If you have short intervals, if you're fortunate enough to get some anaerobic training because you need it on your calendar, you're going to absolutely crush and destroy those. I wouldn't lower your FTP. If that's not an option, I would not lower the FTP. I would just lift less. This guy's already pretty strong, and this is something that you need to take the big picture look. Why do I lift? I lift because when I'm crushing FTP efforts and I get halfway through, you can just downshift. When I've been lifting, there's just another gear. There's just more muscle. When I'm climbing and it's super steep and it's just, you need just raw power, it's the lifting. It's how strong your core gets. If you think you're getting a strong core from doing planks, you need to start deadlifting and you'll truly experience a strong core. Completely different aspect of strength. And so also I think, that one, I'm just thinking through my head, if there's any case where I would lower an FTP because of lifting, I would lower my FTP if it's base season and your FTP has gone down, but this guy's doing FTP intervals, so it probably hasn't. And then we could ask, should you be doing FTP intervals in December? Well, it's a good question. So my last comment also, while I've put some things on Training Peaks, like, hey, here are our top 10 VO2 max workouts, and here's a guide, when to do it, why to do it, how to execute it. The lifting is more of a template, which I hate. And any template that you get, whether it's from me, from someone else, it's not a coach. It's not your training buddy. You're going to have to tweak that to yourself. Do not blindly follow a template. And yes, I've seen probably almost, I shouldn't say every, I've seen a lot of templates because of the power file analyses that we have done. It shows us everybody's calendar, right? I've seen over 600 calendars of random athletes from around the world. So I've seen Dylan's plans. I was a fast cat athlete. I've seen a lot of those plans. I've seen plans from random coaches all across the globe. There are some really good ones that people put some thought into, and there are some other ones from big names that are absolutely trash. So you might follow someone on social media. You might follow me and buy a plan. And you need to understand that it is for as many cyclists as possible. And so I told this guy, hey, as a note, this would be a conversation I'd be having with you if you were my athlete, because you're more experienced. You're talking about doing power cleans. There's no way I'm going to have Johnny, who's never lifted, do power cleans. There's not enough time for him to get good at those, in my opinion, to safely do them and make gains for riding a bike. If he's going to be a power lifter, then sure, we got to obviously do those. Two different scenarios. So just be careful with what you buy for $49. If you buy something from me, hit me up with questions if you have them. No, I can't coach you through everything, because that's the whole point of, there's a difference there. But I'm happy to answer any big picture questions you have. The only reason I put those out there is because the number of people are like, hey man, I get that you don't like templates, but I can't get a coach. I just need some guidance. Get me going in the right direction. Let me get more into cycling. And so I'm trying to meet people in between, provide something that's beneficial. And I don't know. If I find out that it's not, then we won't do anymore. But so far, I've been getting some good feedback from it. And hopefully you are well on your way to an awesome 2023. Keep crushing one day at a time, and you'll be amazed at the changes that you see in your life, in your cycling, in your training, hell, in your happiness. Let's get it. See ya.